Hey, welcome to Geek Speak. I'm Tracy.
I'm Rob.
And let's see, what do you want to talk about today, brother?
So I know you're a Star Trek fan,
Yes, I am a Star Trek
and
fan.
there is a toy company called Nacelle. Have you
Hmm.
ever heard of them?
No, they're new.
I haven't either.
Yeah.
But they have now got the rights to do new Star Trek toys.
Yes, I actually saw pictures of those that were mock ups of what they plan on doing in the future year at the New York Comic Con.
Right, like the Janeway and
Yeah, the ones they pick is real deep cuts.
yeah, kind of obscure
Captain
as you put B
Jericho.
characters.
Yeah, yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, maybe even C characters. And so they've kind of gone from the movies to the TV shows, but the complaint I'm hearing from fans is a couple things. Number one, they're not in scale with the old Playmate figures that were
Um,
popular from the '90s. And number two, um, they wanted like the at least throw in a couple of original characters,
mhm.
the original crew characters. But it seems like the first line they're doing are these real abstract characters. And so when you get a company, you've paid for an IP, a license,
Right.
now you get ready to come out with a product, you want to sell as many as you can. So having some of those deep cuts is okay, but I would say I'd want at least half a line to be, Captain Kirk, Spock, Captain Picard,
Right.
things like that. So yeah, but they are, the problem with the Playmates, because I collected those at one time, is they were really shiny, real glossy, and they had little or no articulation,
Hmm.
and so these are matte coated, so they'll be more attractive,
More
and
accurate.
they're a lot more articulate. So. Speaking of Star Trek, I had a chance to meet William Shatner.
That's cool.
Yeah, because I mean, he's been a hero of mine since I was a kid. I grew up loving Star Trek, and so he came to Lexington. He was premiering a movie. Uh, they Call Me Bill, and it was kind of about his life,
Hmm.
and which I've read some books he's put out in the past, and but it was really neat to meet him. 93 years old, and
93.
he said he'd been up since like 2 o'clock in the morning. And I mean, he's a real go-getter. You could tell his batteries were running down by the end of the night. It was about 10:30 when me and Teresa got our picture taken with him, and he was tired. He was
Right.
tired. But one of the funny things that happened, they played the movie, and then he came out and talked a little bit before the movie, and then he talked a little bit afterward, and then you could go meet him. But during the Q&A afterwards, after the movie, you could submit questions if you wanted him to answer them, and you did it online.
Oh, so
So
you
there,
asked him like where his birthmark was or
yeah,
something.
yeah, something like that. So there was this one guy that just stood up, just and he was like, "Look," he said, "Will you take questions from the audience?" And William Shatner's like, "Yes, if you speak up where I can hear you, I'll take your question." He said, "I'm in management," and he said, "I would just like, since you played a captain for so many years," he said, "if you can just give me some some idea of what uh, captain, no, how was he put, command command presence." That was what he
Oh
said.
Lord.
Can you explain command presence to me? And William Shatner thought for just a second. He was like, "I want you to sit down and shut the f up." Except he didn't say F. I mean, he fully committed. And the boy just stood there and kind of looked around, and everybody started laughing, and the boy sat down. And William Shatner said, "You sit down, didn't you? That's command presence." So, I mean, I was thinking, man, that guy. But what I like about Shatner, he's a real big environmentalist. That's not what I like about him. But what I do like about him is he's 93, and he's willing to take on new challenges. He hadn't slowed down. Most 93-year-olds would be curled up on the couch
Right.
watching Matlock. And
Chilling.
so, so I admire the fact that he's so active at that age, and hopefully I can do the same. So, what else you want to talk about?
Uh, I don't know how you are as far as are you an Aliens fan?
Yeah, the movies,
Right. So there's a new one coming out called Alien Romulus
Romulus.
or
Yeah.
Romulus, and I'm not an Aliens fan. There's nothing wrong with Alien
Yeah.
movies. They're good. They're okay. But what's getting me, a few years ago, a lot of artists started making albums, like literally the vinyl albums.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, they're going to be releasing this movie where you can get it on a VHS tape
Oh, really?
because it's supposed to land between the first one and the second one.
Yeah.
And so it bends its vintage. And I'm sitting here thinking, okay, so this could be a step in kind of like, because everybody started getting records again.
Everybody started buying
And
vinyl
everybody started
again.
having to go
Yeah.
buy record players because nobody had them.
Yeah.
And now I'm wondering, if this really kicks off a new era, is people going to have to start getting VCRs again?
Well, people like physical media.
Right.
And so we'd gone from albums to 8-tracks to cassettes to CDs.
Right.
And then we were in a long section of digital downloads. But the problem with digital downloads, no matter what device you download them on, eventually you typically lose them.
Right.
And so, plus there's just something about holding a physical copy of something in your hand. So I think the nostalgia of vinyl is just that physical sensation of actually owning something. And so, but VHS, the quality of VHS, we were there.
Right.
And then when that's all we had, we thought it was amazing. But, a DVD compared to a VHS, there's no comparison. And a Blu-ray to a DVD, there's no comparison. So the fact is, the difference, like 4K between a Blu-ray, I don't see a huge
that's
difference.
halfway BS too, because I would be watching a trailer.
Yeah.
They had trailers and commercials before movies on our old VHSs.
Yeah.
And I remember when DVDs first started coming out.
Yeah.
They'd say, look at the quality difference. And they'd say, this is what you're watching on VHS, and this is what you're going to show on DVD. And it would be so much better. And I'm sitting here thinking, well, how are you showing me that's so much better, and I'm watching on it on a VHS?
Well,
I actually think it's...
No, I mean...
Not that I'm a conspiracy theorist, but...
I mean, I do think there's an obvious difference between DVD and VHS. I own the old Lone Wolf and Cub movies, the old Japanese samurai movies. I own those on VHS. And so there's like one scene where a guy's carrying a lantern. And all you see is the lantern. You just see
Right.
a light spot moving across the screen, and that's it. So, and that was on the VHS. But on the DVD, you see the lantern, and you see some of him lit up. And so I thought, wow, that's really neat. And then when the Blu-ray come out, you could see the lantern, the stick, him holding the stick, him walking the road, and the trees behind him. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh. So, I mean, yeah, there's a definite quality difference. You might not see it in every show,
Right.
but it's definitely there. So I don't know. I think there'll be a niche audience or a niche group of consumers that will go for the VHS.
Right.
But I think most of them won't.
Well, I think they're only making a certain amount, and it's going to be a collectible thing more than anything else.
Yeah, so I saw the best movie of 2024 this about 2 weeks ago.
Okay, that's bold.
And it was Superman, the Christopher Reeve story.
Okay.
And so it talked about the actor when he was first starting out and how he got his big break into Superman. So it's like a story of triumph. And then how he had his horse accident and ended up being quadriplegic.
Right.
So you had your story of tragedy. And then you had where his wife stuck with him and really, he was on a respirator constantly.
Right.
And so, and he would come unplugged on occasion. And he said it felt like he was going to die before they would get it plugged up because he was. And how his wife stood with him and what she had to go through and the hope that he held on. And, I never realized him and Robin Williams were such good friends. And a lot of people speculated that if Christopher Reeve hadn't died, Robin Williams would still be with us. And they were tight. And so, and then how his kids have picked up the torch that he dropped once he passed away to help people that are quadriplegics. And, but it was, in that 2-hour movie, I cried and cried and cried, and Teresa did too. And we saw it in San Antonio in the middle of the day in a little theater. There was one other guy in there. We turned around and he was just wiping his eyes off. And he's like, well, I'm glad I wasn't the only one in here crying by myself. But I mean, if you get a chance to see that movie, it is impactful. And it is a 10 out of 10. And I mean, I'm not a Christopher Reeves fan, and you know me, I'm not a DC or a Superman fan, but just as a human being watching that, I mean, he said when, he first had his accident, and he knew he was going to have to be on a respirator. He said, I'm not going to be able to play with my kids, not going to be able to make love to my wife, not going to be able to do anything. He told his wife, he said, I just want you to unplug me.
Mm-hmm.
He said, I just want this to be the end. And she said, you're still you. You're still you, and we still love you. And I mean, but the movie was full of stuff like that, and just the relationship they had, and how he had nothing to live for, and yet he found everything to live for. It's very inspirational. It makes you look at your own life and think, why do I complain about this? Why do I complain about that? And it was just Superman's really about hope, the character,
Right.
and he really embodied that in his own life. And like I said, that movie is fantastic, and everyone should see it.
Well, you brought up Robin Williams. There's a story you'll have to look up where Sharon Osbourne was going through her cancer, and she was giving up hope. And Robin Williams showed up and crawled up in the bed with her and was cutting up and making her laugh and gave her. Yeah. It's like this man who, at the end, felt like he was alone, had helped so many people.
Yeah.
And done so much to help them carry on, and for him to go out the way he did was just...
Yeah, and I mean, he was just fighting. He was fighting depression.
Right.
That's something you can't understand unless you've actually
but
dealt
I mean,
with
it wasn't...
But he actually, I think part of his life, part of the value of his life was being an inspiration for others.
Right.
Like Christopher Reeve.
Yeah. So, let's see. What was the other thing? Oh! So, how familiar are you with Spider Noir? Spider-Man
Spider
Noir.
Noir.
Yeah.
Yeah. The guy with the all dressed in black.
Right.
He's supposed to be Spider-Man. My grandson, he really liked that Into the Spider-Verse.
Right.
I never watched it.
Well, you're going to get a kick out of it because they're bringing a live-action version of it.
Yeah.
With the voice actor acting as the character, Nicolas Cage, your buddy.
Oh my gosh. You always say I'm crazy over Nicolas Cage. I don't know where that got started at. I mean, I like the guy, but I don't have like posters of him up on the wall.
This week they ended up releasing images of his stuntman on the back of a vehicle. The suit is awesome. I mean, because it looks like something from the 40s.
Yeah. Now I do like the 40s.
Right, and then basically the storyline is he's a detective now. He's in his 60s.
Yeah.
He's a detective, and he's kind of remembering back when he was younger. He was the only superhero in the town at the time, or in the city, and I guess something brings him back to where he has to put the suit back on. So anyway, it sounds like a good premise, and they were going to make it into a movie.
Yeah.
But now they're making it into a series. The first season's 8 episodes.
Yeah, it sounds interesting. I mean, my thing is with the multiple Spider-Mans.
Right.
When everybody's Spider-Man, being Spider-Man isn't as special. It's like when you had tons of Wolverines running around at one time.
It's not everybody's Spider-Man. It's like everybody,
Spider-Man's
every
from
universe
different
has
universes.
their
I know
own
that
Spider-Man.
multiverse stuff. Oh my gosh, it makes me constipated.
I think it would be badass if, in the end, some way that they can so Nicolas Cage doesn't want to. Okay, I'm kind of concerned because Nick Cage doesn't want to hurt anybody. He's already started changing the way it's written.
Oh, well, that's
so,
not right.
So they're going to have him fight, I think, battling monsters.
Okay.
Which is fine and dandy,
Yeah.
but there's monsters. But I'm hoping that he comes across like a monster, kind of like Morbius or something, like a vampire that lives for 1,000 years.
Yeah.
And so that at the end of the season or the end or something, he's actually standing in front of like Miles Morales, the Spider-Man, the other Spider-Man, and telling him the story of Spider Noir, or maybe they just kind of flash back between the two of them. I think that would be cool.
Yeah. I mean, I do like the 1940s, and I do like those old pulp heroes
Yeah.
like the Shadow and Solomon Kane. So so that would be cool. So I'll give it a try. I'll give it a try. I'll have an open mind. I'll give it a try.
Okay.
And so let's see. My comic book recommendation. Oh, are you done with yours? Okay. My comic book recommendation is there was a comic that came out years and years ago called Rogues. I'll let you do the honors of
Oh,
holding
okay.
it up. So it's a fantasy comic, and it's had multiple publishers over the year. But the creative team's always been the same. It's always been El Torres writing it, and Jose Rip doing the art on most of it. But it started out with a comic book company called Dark Planet,
Okay.
and it follows two protagonists, Zam and Weasel, and it's like you know how
That
fantasy.
cover looks oddly familiar,
Yeah,
like that.
you know how fantasy
X-Men.
typically follows European theme. Well, this is like Spanish, so it's like a Spanish version of fantasy.
Okay.
And so Amigo picked it up, and Amigo runs some issues. Now it's being put out by Scout Comics. So there's been 3 different publishers over the year. These are so hard to come across. They're not expensive comics.
Right.
They just had low print runs. And so if you can find them, mycomicshop.com would probably be a good place to start. They've had a few limited series. The Cold Ship and was one of them. And I forget, The Burning Heart was another. But if you get a chance to read them, they're lean toward adult oriented, so they're
Oh.
probably not for kids.
Okay.
And but they're funny, and they're original, and they're definitely good art and good reads. So if you get a chance to pick up Rogues, definitely pick it up. And it's hard to search because when you put in Rogue, you know what comes up?
Rogue.
Yeah, Rogue from the X-Men.
X-Men,
Yeah. So I mean, it's kind of tough to search it, but yeah, give it a look-see, and I promise you won't be disappointed if you like well-written stories that are fantasy.
Cool.
So, are you done?
I'm done.
I'm done too. If you like our content, if you like two geeky brothers talking, hit the like, subscribe button, and stay geeky, my friends.